Hey, what's up? It's another review for you. Been meaning to do this. I've had this watch for several months now. Can't remember how long ago I got it, but it's been a while. Anyways, let's get into it. This is the Seiko Prospex SBDN069. It's also known as a solar diver or solar scuba. I think I've heard it being called before. Yeah, let's go over the specs. And this is a 38.5 millimeter case, and the thickness is pretty nice, 10.6 millimeters, and the lug to lug, I measure it just a smidgen over 46 millimeters lug tip to lug tip, and that is including like this bit of an angle out, or inwards. Here you see how it kind of comes to a point almost, not really a point, but so this for the most part. But if you see where it's actually rotating off of these female end links right here, it's actually a little bit inboard, so I would say it's probably closer to 45 where it's actually bending, so it's pretty nice. What else is there? 20 millimeter lug width. Let's see. It looks like a 3-link bracelet, but you can see it's just some play in the finishing here that makes it look like it's 3 links, but it's actually one solid link. But it does the job. It's still actually a fairly comfortable bracelet. Not the best quality. It's very typical Seiko. It's got friction pins. I want to say, I think it's the kind that has the ring or collar on the outside, and then you tap it out. And so you got to make sure you got that in there. It could be a little bit annoying to size, if I recall. This is a very typical Seiko class, stamped metal here, and I assume it's probably stamped too. It's got 4 micro adjusts. It does have this rather useless diver extension, which I'm pretty sure no one but the most serious divers might actually use. Let's see, how do you remove this? It's been a while since I've done this, but maybe just pop it out, kind of unlatch it or unhook it, and it comes out this much. Doesn't look that great, and it's far too much for like a casual, if your wrist swells, it's probably going to be way too much looseness. But if you do extend it to, I guess, slip over a dive suit where your wrist with that layer over it is going to be thicker, it should be sufficient. And you just kind of latch it back on like that. With that, when the clasp is locked, it's like a flip lock with the point here, 2 buttons, with a safety fold over. But it's nice signed. The crown is not. It does have drilled lug holes, which is great because this is a bit of a strap monster. And yeah, let's see what else. Unidirectional 120 click bezel, and it's nice and dampened. It's very typical Seiko feeling and sounding, I would say. I like it. It's not, I would still really backplay it slightly, but it's not really anything. But how well does it align? Well, let's see here. It is ever so slightly off to one side or the other, but the way this thing works is that I would tend to line it up just to the right of it. That's fused closer, and then just nudge it into place, and it generally holds fine. For me, it's got just enough friction when you kind of nudge it there between the clicks that it doesn't slip off too easily, at least in my experience. But of course, your mileage may vary depending on how you wear it, what you have over it. But I usually find it holds pretty well. And checking the alignment of the rest of it, I think overall the next part to look at is the chaptering inside there, the minute or second track. And for the most part, it's reasonably lined up. Maybe it's slightly a little bit off, but I think for the most part, when you look at it, it doesn't really read like super crooked right off the bat. You know, you really have to stare at it and cross-reference, you know, different points to see where it's off by, but so minor that that's not been a problem. And in terms of alignment with the second hands, overall, it seems to tick pretty well. I say between, someone asked me this because this is actually on sale, but where is it perfectly aligned? No, but I think between the 42 or 43 all the way over to around 22 or 23, as you can see, it looks pretty well aligned with the seconds. But for some reason over here, it starts to go off just a little bit slightly. So I'll let you see that as I talk about this. What else is there? There's Loom, of course, and the pip. It's a fully graduated scale. It's diverse 200, so it's like ISO, you know, compliant and all that. And what else? Oh, by considering this is like a, you know, somewhat entry level, or is this a mid tier for Seiko? I don't know, but for around, what are these new, 500-600, depending on where you buy it from. You can't get it lower to closer to around 4, depending on where you shop around, but it's not bad. And it actually has sapphire, not Heartlix, which is funny. It's like a lot of the high-end stuff, or higher end, like costing in the thousands, not necessarily, or even around the same price, but I don't always, I think majority of the die watches do not have sapphire, but for some reason they do, and it does say so on the back here, somewhere right there, sapphire crystal. Just a very typical Seiko case back, solid. It does have hollow end links, but I don't care. It's solid. It's solid enough, and you can always adjust these to be a little tighter if you need to. I've never known the hollow end links to have any failures. They seem to work just fine. Are they really rattly? Well, I suppose not much more than the bracelet itself, right? But it's fine. I think for what you're getting, it's perfectly fine. This, and if I didn't mention, it's 20 down to roughly about 18, and obviously it maybe goes a little bit thicker back up right around the clasp, but not by much if it does. And what else can I say? It's just screw down crown, stainless steel, of course. I believe the bezel is also some sort of steel insert. It's not, I'm pretty sure it's not aluminum. It's this newer kind of bezel design that they have like on some of their, like the 43mm tunas, the street tunas, I guess. If you see some of those that have this metal insert, it also it's got this slight, you can see there like these grooves or concentric circle kind of pattern, so it gives it kind of a matte look, but for the most part you don't really notice it until you get really up close. But it's nicely done. And the one thing I like about this particular one, they have lots of nice colors. The blue version, come on, focus. The blue version is pretty nice. Got a radiant blue dial, blue bezel. That's actually probably my next favorite. They have a gilt version, if I'm not mistaken, like probably black and gold. I know they have a patty version that has like a different dial. It's got like this kind of, like their patty, it's got like this kind of like a globe-like patterning. It's got these grids, like as if it's a sphere or globe. I think that's part of the patty logo, if I'm not mistaken. The movement in here is a, what is it? A V147 solar quartz movement. And it's got a date complication. And the power reserve, if it's fully charged, I believe it goes as long as 10 months. So that's pretty good. And so, yeah, that's all you need is just to charge it. And I believe if it starts to run low, like a lot of, I think, solar-powered watches, what will happen is that they'll start to, the indicator is that it'll skip a second, so it'll tick every 2 seconds. So, yeah, you see a pause and a larger like gap or jump from every 2 seconds. And that's basically about it. So let's get this on wrist. Right now I have my Seiko 5303-1, denoting the black dial variant, and I believe the -2 is the silver dial, which looks basically white. It's kind of the reverse. But love this watch, really cool. Has a quirk with the crown, as some of you may know, and I've actually mentioned it in some of my other videos, and some people also have, but can definitely live with it. It's running pretty dang super accurate out of the box, and so I pretty much don't need to reset the watch or fiddle with it much. It holds plenty well, and I've gotten used to it, and I can work with it. I don't think it's a big deal. How it will hold up over the long run, who knows? But it doesn't sound like they do offer. Seiko did put out a thing a while back so that if you want to get it fixed, you can have them. You send it to one of their authorized repair shops, watchmakers on either side of the United States, at least on the west or the east coast. I think west coast, you got to go down to send it down somewhere in SoCal. Not sure about the rest of the world or on the east coast where you send it to exactly, but they should get it fixed, and so it'll operate more normally. But from what I've heard, even after the fix, it still actually kind of still has that weird quirk. And supposedly after the first batch or batches that came out with, like mine did, when they first were produced, even the ones just a little bit that they could squeeze out right after that supposedly fixed it, but I believe some people that got it still says that it still has that issue. So either way, doesn't sound like that was completely fixed. So I just figure I like this watch too much, then I don't want to bother sending it out and waiting and getting it back, and it's not really going to necessarily do 100% fix as, you know, it should, or one would hope it should. So I said, screw it. I can live with it. It's not a big deal. Actually, it was a disappointment because, you know, who wants a watch that you have to send out for some bit of a fix or repair as soon as you get it, right? Brand new. But yeah, after a while, I just kind of got over it. And I said, you know what? This is still a very nice watch, and it runs great. It wears great and all that. But this is not a review about this watch, which I should do one. Haven't done one yet. So we set that off to the side. So this one, the SBDN069. I got this because I didn't have a Seiko in my collection, and I just felt weird, and I felt I should get one, but I didn't feel like I spent a lot of money on Seikos, and I but then at that moment I didn't feel like I needed to spend that much, and so this seemed to fit the right price range for. I got it for roughly around $4, if I recall correctly, and I was looking for something also that was I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but something rather generic, very classic, I guess, and this just kind of fits it, you know. It's sort of, you know, obviously, somewhat obviously, it's very, you know, Submariner-ish, right? It's not exact, doesn't really have a sharp pointed triangle, but the round and the rectangle indices there, a date over the 3. The handsets are definitely Seiko, which is great. And I don't know, I think the bezel is kind of its own thing too, if you really look at the details. So yeah, and I also wanted that vintage Submariner or Tudor kind of look, or at least with a color. And I like how sometimes they have like their faded bezel, and that's what drew me to this particular model. Is just that it has a really cool faded look to it. It's got this kind of really desaturated and lightened look to it, and it's gray. I think most places say this is a gray bezel, and it does look it, but depending on the lighting, it does tend to pick up on either it shifts to a slightly bluish hue, so it kind of has a blue-gray look, and sometimes it shifts to a kind of purplish gray look too. So it kind of rides that kind of that tonal range of gray, if you want to. It's the only way I could describe it. And the dial, I think, is advertised as black, but it's kind of hard to see in this lighting. But I think in actuality, it's just a very dark gray. And it has a slight radiance, but this is probably not picking it up right now. I do not believe there's any AR on these, but it's such a stark contrast anyways that it's a very high contrast dial. It's no problem reading it. And I love the way that this also has, I'm not sure they're truly applied, but for all intents and purposes, they look like applied markers. So they don't have, like these don't have like a border or frame around them, but they do obviously look 3D, so that looks kind of good. And the handles are nice. It's very typical Seiko, and I kind of appreciate that. So to keep it looking more Seiko than anything else. It doesn't have a Cyclops, which I don't really need. Kind of like it cleaner without it. So this on my size to my just under 7-inch wrist. That's how it holds up. And it's very low profile. And I do like how this bezel looks, how it's designed. It's almost, I forgot who else described it as this, but it almost looks almost like a MM300, like, you know, it's got this kind of beefy utilitarian look about it. It's not as beefy as I think the MM300s, but it has that still, you get the feel of that DNA in it, which is cool. And it's, you know, it just almost looks like a mechanical gear or cog, right? That would be, that's inside, that would have been in some sort of machine, right? I just like that kind of mechanical look about this particular bezel design. I don't think I've seen anyone else do one quite like this, and so this is different. It's not like your typical Submariner style or even Omega style, which is got, well, Rolex got more of like smaller, I guess, scalloped little bits out of it. They're not really a coin edge, and the Omega, especially their Seamasters, it's much larger scalloped. It almost looks faceted to some degree, and that's also, from my experience, seems like it'd be a bitch to rotate because it sort of doesn't have much grip because it's very smooth. It doesn't actually have, I don't think, any kind of not knurling, but you know, any kind of grip or texture around it. It's just scalloped on those Omega Seamasters. But anyways, I digress. So this rotates fine. Again, nice and dampened. Not much back play really. I'm just showing you just with some light pressure. It's just not really budging. So it just goes right into place, more or less. I mean, it's like here, ever so slightly if I had to, you know, off to one side. But again, I always just nudge it slightly, and that's close enough, and that'll do it. So yeah, this is a great. I also got this because, you know, I kind of thought, sorry about knocking the camera, I thought that I'd like to have a grab and go watch for times when I'm coming off the weekend and trying to, I don't necessarily want to wear the watch that I have over the weekend to work, and I didn't have time to set up another watch, and you know, mechanical, automatic or something. So something to grab and go real quick besides my Casio G-Shock, which is a great one too, but you know, sometimes I don't feel like going digital, so I want to do analog, and this is great, and it's pretty universal, and it just works with everything. It's a great size, and for 38.5, I feel it wears actually a little bit larger. Why is because I believe the lugs are rather broad and thick for the size watch. It's almost like the modern Submariner, at least the one before the 41, and then they slimmed down the lugs, the previous kind of maxi case. Because you look at this, it almost has that kind of profile where, you know, the profile of the silhouette is almost rectangular in shape. It doesn't taper in as narrowly as some of the newer ones or vintage ones. I'm talking Rolex. So it's got this, you know, broadness about it, so that kind of beefs it out. But that's pretty good for a 38.5. And just to give you some scale, if I can back this up. And wears low, tight, not much gap at all. It's great. And but yeah, why am I selling it? I am selling it, and actually did sell it. That's why I gotta get this video out. I just have too many watches, and I gotta start. And this has been an ongoing plan for 2 years. Some things go, some things come in, and it's ongoing. But I'm trying to really get things down, more condensed to things that I really want to wear more often. And it's not this watch is no good. It's just that there's other ones, for instance, back there, and some other ones in my collection, which I need to do a stated collection at some point to show you guys that that I'd rather keep to just have, you know, those to just keep in rotation and instead of trying to spread myself out too thin. If I had, you know, more money or and not have to worry about things more, so that, you know, I didn't want to have to think about, or, you know, kind of be a slight niggle for me to just leave certain watches in the watch box longer than I would like to. You know, I just don't like doing that. It's like, if I have them, I should be wearing them, making experiences, memories, all that, just using them, right? I don't want to just have them in a box to collect and pull them out very rarely on occasion, if even that. So unfortunately, this one did not make the cut, although it's a great overall universal watch. And this, I mean, this coloring, you see, what I like about this is that you get that vintage kind of faded bezel. It's just a nice tone. You don't see this kind of tone too often on many modern watches, you know. And if they do go somewhere in this direction, they'll make it with Fotina, which I'm not opposed necessarily, but you know, I like the fact that you can get this, mainly the tones of the faded bezel, without having to go, you know, play that role too much, and you still got modern, clean, you know, white Loom and so forth. You know, you don't have to go all in on vintage. You can get just appreciate and have some of that color, but then keep it in a modern, more modern form factor, I guess. That's what I wanted to try to describe or elaborate on. And to compare it, this is actually supposedly not much bigger, right? This is the Seiko is 39 millimeters, and this is 38.5. So this is technically smaller than this one, but you compare them next to each other. Which one do you think is smaller? The Seiko, right? I mean, it's just basically a 0.5 difference in diameter, supposedly, but this does wear and look significantly larger. Again, I think it's due to the broadness and a little bit more beefiness, you know, of the lugs here, which is cool. I like it. It gives it a very tooly vibe, you know, especially with this bezel. It looks, you don't expect it when you look up front, but when you turn it on its profile here, especially compared to like something like this one here, which is somewhat significant for the thinness of this watch. This watch isn't actually all that much thin, you know, not too far off from the thinness of this, although I do believe this is a little bit thinner. I forget what this one is, so bear with me. But, you know, mid case wise, they show off basically about the same, but you can see underneath on the bottom of the Seiko, it's flat, or much more flatter, whereas this one does kind of come down and out a bit, as you can see that. Although the lugs do curve down a little bit more, but that's why this one wears really nice and low. But this is no slouch too, because this basically sinks into the wrist. But the mid case to me look about the same thickness, but this bezel, especially since it comes up straighter around the perimeter compared to this one, it kind of tapers down, right? You can see that this just has a beefier look, but although it's actually a little bit smaller, it actually comes up bigger looking than this guy here, which is supposedly a little bit bigger than this one. But yeah, this is a cool watch. No doubt. Actually, it's pretty good value, I think. You don't mind quartz. I think this is probably more durable than any automatic. More than likely. It's been super accurate. I've measured it at just barely 0.2 seconds a day. Yes, I do keep records of all my watches just to see how they perform. And I knew this would be accurate, right, because of quartz, but it's really accurate. So I've had some that do like a solar tuna before, which was nice. I actually had a couple, but I remember that I had a golden one, and it did kind of disappoint me because as I was measuring it, it felt like it was moving a bit too slow or a bit too fast, and I would think that a quartz movement should be doing. It almost was worse than some of my automatics and mechanicals, which that doesn't seem right. So I ended up selling it. But anyways, yeah, this one's pretty cool. Screw down crown. I don't need to show you how this works. You know, you just unscrew it, it pops out. Pull it to, you still have to pull it out a little bit to the first position to set the date. Looks like it's going to midnight because this is going towards midnight. It's nighttime recording. So that's why the date isn't not off. It's just that it's about to change. You know, Seiko does do a long movement to start to change the date over, right? As some of you might know, even on their, you know, mechanical watches like with the what is it, the 4R35 and 36s, which is very typical for the at least the previous, and some modern gen Seiko divers, for instance. What else? There's crown guards, which is, they're pretty good. And yeah, so you put it all the way to the second position, it will hack, and you can set the time. And there you go. Very easy. So let's go check out the Loom before I close this out. Just give it a little boost, but to be honest, I probably don't need to because Seiko is generally pretty good anyways. So hopefully this will be dark enough. Let me see if I can boost the ISO on this just a little bit so you can see it better. And just give it a little boost. It's actually pretty bright, but my camera settings suck, so I have to bump it up low just so you can see it better. So yeah, easy legibility, very easy to orientate. With the new ISO standards, you do have to have that little bit of, you have to have loom clips all the way around. So that's why you start to see some Seikos with that little bit on the 3 o'clock if you have a date window, which most Seiko divers do have a date and or day complication, and they do the newest ones, they have to squeeze that in to get that divers 200 rating and all the newest ISO standards. Trust me, this watch will glow plenty bright overnight. It's just dimming down just a tad, and it's, you know, where it dims down to is a good level, and it, you know, it's just, if you had Seiko divers with the Luma Bright, even the dress Presage line and stuff, they'll usually last plenty overnight. So yeah, so you have to have that there. Even like my old SPB 147, the reduced or mini MM200, whatever you want to call it, or 62, or rather the 62 MOS reissue, that brown dial, gilt dial that I had, not anymore. That one did not have, let me turn the lights back on. Oops, sorry. That one did not have that pip over here, the Loom plot right off of the date. And also some of the early two Willards, the smaller version, which are what, 42, 43 millimeters, right? Those ones that they came out originally in a black and the green one, right? And you look at those, the early ones, they did not have the Loom pip here by the date, but the newest gens, the ones that they've been producing after, I don't know what date, but once they set that new standard, you start to see that there. I'm kind of iffy on it. Depends on how it's executed. Here, it's not too bad because it kind of just that old general shape with the date window kind of basically equates to something like what's going on the 9 o'clock, right? That rectangular form. Though it's split and, it's not exactly the same, but overall from a distance, it does the job. But what I don't like is when, like on the, for instance, the 62 Moss reissues, right? When they added the newer ones, they added this to it. What I don't like is that they couldn't fit it in line within the same radius or circumference as the rest of the Loom plots or the indexes. So it's actually on the outer. So it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of more into the chaptering, or I guess those ones don't really have a chaptering. They're actually printed on the dial, but it's kind of the minute marking around the outside of that dial for that model. That one pip is actually a little bit out there, so that does visually kind of bug me, because it's like this one fits within, like where this is, like on the outside to the the indexes, it's basically the same as what's over on this side, more or less. But on the other ones, where for some reason the way it's set up, the date window is too much in the way or whatever, this will actually end up outside and kind of in that track. So it's just like you look around and all of a sudden, like, poof, this thing kind of pops out, but not on this one. Final thoughts, yeah, for the price, if you can get one roughly around 400, you gotta shop around. Some places, usually most of these go for 5 or 6, but you can, if you look online for some Japanese sellers, or possibly on eBay or something, you should be able to get one new for roughly 400-ish or so, maybe a tad under, depending. But yeah, if you want a good, comfortable size, I think 38.5, it's basically almost 39 when you wear it visually. Actually, I think it almost borders on 40 millimeters compared to this 39 here. It does feel more like a 40, but it works like a 38.5 actually, because it actually is. But this is a great watch, very classic, but it's kind of done in its own Seiko-ish way. So it's not like a more derivative, like homage, like, like, oh, that looks just like a Submariner. No, it doesn't. So, it's got its own thing. The case profile is completely different. Same with the bezel and a lot of other features. I mean, if you're detail-oriented, and most really good watch enthusiasts, even the casual ones, you should be paying attention to all the details. So, there's a lot of things that matter, and if you look at this, really, it's like it's kind of its own thing. And yeah, for great grab and go, even beater, I wouldn't use it as a beater, but you can pretty much, it just works on so many straps too. 20 millimeter width, so that makes it easy, especially with the drilled lug holes. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. There's plenty of colors out there. There's green ones, I think. I'm sure they'll still continue to make more. So yeah, I definitely would recommend one. You can try to see, hopefully you score one that's fairly well aligned, but of course, Seiko, a lot of these can be off. And mine is slightly off, as I pointed out, but it's close enough where it's not irritating. And, it's nothing I felt like I had to crack it open and realign everything and pop off the bezel and re-glue it down just to make sure it's absolutely perfect. No, most of it's good enough. And for the price point and how I wear it and how often I wear it, it's just fine the way it is. So hopefully if you get one, it'll be just as good, if not better. But if it's worse, hopefully it's not too far bad worse. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. I hope I didn't miss anything. I probably did, but that's it. So catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.